22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse.
1 2 1 2, and I say,
you're the one who has that power.
I spit that fire. I take your mind higher.
All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are listening to Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on INTHEMIXXRADIO.com. I'm your host, AJ Woodson, joined by Dr. Robert Baskerville in the place to be. But first, before I just want to say a couple of words. It's been said a few times, because it's been said about me too. Like anytime you have somebody that criticizes an elected official or a person that has a position of power, they want to say that that person is being paid. Recently, an elected official, a politician, had a conversation with our New York Mount Vernon news correspondent of, I see Facebook just kicked in, so for everybody on Facebook, welcome. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday 6 to 8 on INTHEMIXXRADIO.com. So back to my opening statement. So recently this was said about Atif Khalil, that's how he's known on Facebook, Atif K. Coleman. He freelances for he's a freelance Mount Vernon news correspondent. And critics who engage in paying others to promote their propaganda attacked Atif, saying Black Westchester or another entity must be paying Atif before his criticism of the mayor of Mount Vernon. A claim that has often been made about myself as well. So I just wanted to clear the record at the beginning of the show. Atif or any other contributor to Black Westchester or People Before Politics radio, we're a small outfit. Everybody volunteers their services, and they mostly do it because they care for the community. You know, we are a free press that advertisers and occasional organizations or people who believe in what we do make donations to make sure to keep us going. That allows us to keep the paper free for the people. This is just another weak attempt by those whose feet are being held to the fire. And as I said on Facebook, in response to a comment by A.O. Joints, we are not here to promote any politician's propaganda. We look into all the info and report the information to the best of our ability. We report the truth as we know it. Will we get it wrong sometimes every now and then? Yes, like any other media outlet, especially when one side refuses to answer questions and give quotes when they're requested. When we do get it wrong on those occasions, I have personally admitted and corrected the mistake. But because someone exercises their right to criticize an elected official or a person in power, it's not because they are being paid to talk bad about you. Suggesting such is an insult on individuals like Atif and Brenda and anyone else, saying that they don't have a mind of their own. We know we know, basically, it insults the individual, and I just want to stand on that. We, like I said, we post what we post. We support what we support. It's not our position to share the propaganda of the individuals. And some people get mad when they send us press releases and we don't run them verbatim. That's because that's not our job. You have publicity people. You have people that do your email blasts to take care of that sometimes. So, secondly, I want to say anyone who is paid to report the news, it doesn't take away from the facts, because they are being paid. Suggesting such is another attempt to change the narrative and shift attention away from whatever it is you're doing. So I just wanted to put that out there, because recently one of our people was attacked, and it's uncalled for, and I wanted to call bullshit on that. So that's all I have to say on the situation. Even Bob here has had people come up to him like, oh, they must have put a battery in your back. They must have been paying you. Why are you saying these things? Because that's how he feels, because he cares about the community and he wants to get the truth out there, and he doesn't like what's going on. So we're not going to make the whole show about that. I just wanted to get that out, unless Bob wants to add anything to that.
I'll only add that just as during the 2015 mayoral campaign in Mount Vernon, I was an open, ardent supporter of Richard Thomas based on policy promises that he had intimated to me that he would pursue in Mount Vernon, especially good government. So too, on almost with a very small amount of money, totally volunteer basis. And because I believe in the importance of Black Westchester, everything that I do is voluntary. AJ and Damon, I think, are doing an outstanding job to the best of their ability. I'm looking to support it because it's vital that we have independent newspapers to track issues in our community. And that's my only... If I didn't believe in this, and I always make a good faith effort to try to uncover the facts as I'm able to determine them, and to offer up an impartial, as impartial analysis I can, and that's it for me.
Secondly, I'd like to say, shout out to everybody who's listening. As you notice, Lorraine is not here today. The lovely Latina Lorraine Lopez is not joining us today. She's taking a brief break, which is something we all need. So I know she's tuned in, so I want to say what's up to her.
What's up, Lorraine?
Damon K. Jones. This is a holiday weekend. He been working crazy hours. They got forced overtime at the job because some people don't show up and act like they can't work overtime or something. So he got to work extra hours. So the brother's resting. I know he will be tuning in. Shout out to Caitlin Gleason, Janelle Albritton, Brother Arthur Muhammad, Jesse Van Loo, and D. Wilson, who are all tuned in. Today we have a couple of guests. One that's about to come in right now. The first guest, if you can hear me, make your way into the studio, please. They're going to tell you about a little program they got, give you some financial information, and tell you about the ingenious thing that they're doing. And then after that, we have New York State Attorney General candidate Licia Eve, and I hope I pronounced her first name correctly. She is running. She's one of the 4 Democratic candidates running for New York State Attorney General. And I think it's very important, not just to Westchester, but to everybody to check out the candidates. We've reached out to all of them. She is the first one who responded back to us. Then you also have Mike Sussman running on the Green Party. As we do with all the elections, the candidates that we can get that do accept our invitation, we bring them on the show, introduce you to them, ask them a couple of questions so you can get to know who they are and hopefully make an informed decision when it comes to heading to that ballot box. You know what I'm saying? So, we a little different than everybody else. We're going to give you a different perspective than everybody else. Who else? Damon K. Jones just tuned in. Akeith just tuned in. Glenn P. Butler just tuned in. Robert Summons, I'm sorry. What's up, cousin? From Connecticut just tuned in. Pat English from Strong Island, she just tuned in. I'm expecting a lot more people around the state to be tuned in because of our guest today. This is not just a Westchester issue. This is a New York State issue. And the Attorney General position is very important, as you know, in matters like Eric Garner and situations like that, and, you know, dealing with corruption. We're going to get into all of that. So without further ado, I'd like to have our two guests introduce themselves to you. Pull your mic close to you. They move, speaking to the mic. Tell us who you are and what y'all do, the creative thing that y'all do that I've never seen before.
Awesome. Well, first I'll go. My name is Jeff Broom, President and CEO of the Business Kings and the Trucking Crew.
Okay.
To my left.
My name is Quincy Luzinaris. I'm President and CEO of Credit Concepts and Raise the Credit, well, credit improvement firm.
Okay, and before we get started, we have to give you an official People Before Politics welcome.
All right. We'll take that.
Now, y'all actually have a mobile. Now, I've seen this done with like healthcare. You know, people come by and they come take your blood pressure and do all that kind of stuff, and they reach a bunch of people that don't have health benefits that, you know, don't know in the hood, especially in the hood, you know.
Sure.
But y'all do a similar thing, but as far as credit is concerned. And I said this to one of y'all, both of y'all on the phone, and I've said it several times on the radio. We don't teach our kids about credit enough in our communities. And I'm speaking personally, and I've said this several times. I didn't know what credit was till I ain't have it no more. That's when I found out what credit was and how important it was. It was already gone. You know what I'm saying? So you know, I wish that I had more. And then we have Brother Rashad Bilal come on. He tries to come on monthly to give you all financial tips and credit. And I want these brothers to explain what they do and why they do it.
I'm going to talk about the mission, and I'm going to let Quincy talk about the nuance of how we get it done.
Okay.
You know, we're both from the inner city, you know, Bronx, Brooklyn. And like you said, there's a lot of things that we were behind the eight ball because our parents didn't teach us how to compete financially. You know, we teach our kids about sports, do a great job sometimes taking them to the church, things of that nature, teach them how to dress. But when it comes down to competing financially, sometimes we fall a little short. So coming from an underserved community, understanding what it is to own in New York City or to be in New York City where the price of living is extremely high, we understand that, you know, credit was a barrier to entry. And very simply, we believe you have to fund your dreams. And credit is that gateway to your dream car, your dream house, you know, your dream education at times.
You can't do nothing without credit. You know, there's jobs that run your credit report now.
100%.
Before you get the job, like, you know, you might not get a job,
exactly,
a good paying job in some fields because your credit sucks.
So we find that, you know, because we don't have that education, it's not taught in school. One would think that it would be, right? But it's not. So all of a sudden we become disenfranchised and we become way behind the eight ball, and we see other ethnicities prosper and move ahead in our neighborhoods, businesses, real estate, because they understand the money game and they understand how to leverage the bank and the capitalist system that we live in. So that's just part of our mission, and it's changing. You know, everybody can have good credit. We have the money. We just like to spend it on things, you know, expensive pocketbooks, sneakers, things of that nature, where we should be reinvesting in ourselves financially. So Quincy came up with a phenomenal concept because sometimes, you know, you got to, I guess, bring it to the people, because the people might not come out. So I'm going to let him expound upon what he was able to do with that.
Well, we, you know, being in the credit industry for over 15, 20 years combined, we knew that presence was very important when it comes to this credit game. And we opened up a credit education center on 1175 Castle Hill Avenue in the Bronx. So for the past 2 years, seeing the reception that the community has gave in the center, finally being able to have that accessible access point where they can come in, understand how to read a report, understand what's on their credit, we've seen that collectively, if we can come together and not only put these education components in our urban communities, imagine what we can do if it was accessible in other places simultaneously. So that's where the vision of kind of going mobile came. We want to be able to partner up with organizations, you know, events, nonprofits, large gatherings, and just bring that education component directly to them. Infused with technology and accessibility just makes a perfect marriage.
And the reason we had you on this week, because we're concentrating mostly on the candidates for the primary. You know, as we said, you know,
Absolutely.
try to get as many of the candidates in before the primary. And y'all are going to be in Mount Vernon next week at the Rappacon event, which a lot of people you will reach a lot of people who won't come to you. That
Especially down on Castle Hill Avenue.
But I'm saying, period, though. No matter where you are, wherever you are, they're not coming to you. You'll reach a lot of people where they are, and they will be out there because there will be good music and DJs and all that stuff, and some food maybe, and you know, we show up for those things. You know what I'm saying?
All day.
Yeah. So coming to that, I think, is a powerful move.
Yeah. So we, you know, shout out to Councilman Andre Wallace.
Yes.
And my brother Curtis Sherrod.
Yes.
Who puts from On Point Radio. I'm also On Point Radio. And,
Shout to Yaz.
Shout to Yaz Hurston.
Yes.
Indeed.
Who writes the Single Mom Chronicle in Black Westchester.
Single Mom Chronicle. Shout out to Yaz, powerful woman. And so Kurt gave me an invitation to say, listen, you know, Kurt's about hip hop and rap.
Yes.
So he said, Jeff, I have an opportunity for you to do some panel discussions. So, you know, love rap. I'm from inner city, Brooklyn, projects. I get it. But I'm also a house head, right? Yeah. So we're going to do a little panel on house music. But more importantly, the segment that me and Q are really excited about is about owning a house. You know, it's about home ownership. So we know that credit is extremely important for that. So we have Quincy Luzinaris. I've got my friend Andre Horn, who's a real estate professional. Jason Cledenden. He's going to be doing affordable housing because everybody can't afford a home in New York City. You got some mortgage folks as well.
Affordable housing is not affordable. I don't even know why they call it that.
I'm trying to tell you. So there's some nuances, man. So that's going to be at I just want to throw out the address for those who don't know. It's going to be at 28 East 1st Street. Our presentation starts promptly at about 12:15. And anybody who's looking for home ownership, investment property, find out what they qualify for. And I'll let Q talk about what we're going to do for free for people that come in for their credit. But we're really passionate about it because, you know, we can wear T-shirts, we can march, we can do a lot of different things. But if we don't own pieces of our neighborhood, own our blocks, we know a lot of gentrification taking place and we're getting kind of squeezed out. So we're about ownership, owning the businesses, owning the real estate in our neighborhoods. And I know that Q, he put something together, especially for people who came out to that event, what he was going to do for them.
Well, you know, ownership is highly important, but also awareness is. You
Absolutely.
don't know how to purchase a home if you don't even know where you stand. So we want to come out. We want to offer not only free credit consultations, but we want to make sure that they don't go a day without knowing where their credit stands. So we're giving them a 1 year of credit protection, 1 year of credit monitoring.
I might take you up on that.
Identity theft is huge. You know, there's $106 billion a year is being stolen through identity theft. So we want to make sure everybody's credit protected. So everybody will be getting a 1 year of free credit monitoring, credit education, and a $1 million identity theft insurance policy.
Wow.
With other fraud alerts and other protection features. But we think that's highly effective.
Absolutely. I often joke my credit's so jacked up. So the best thing somebody could do for me is steal my credit. maybe pay for some stuff and give my numbers up a little bit. No, but that's not an invitation to take my credit. I'm just saying though. But I mean, ownership.
AJ, we feel that I'm not to cut you off, man, but then let you ownership. But and make that point. We just feel like when you graduate from high school, outside of your SAT score, your credit scores are the most important numbers that you should be aware of as an adult. So I'm sorry.
And most people can't tell you what their credit score is.
Absolutely not. And if they do, they tell you one. There's 3 bureaus.
Right?
So you should know them like you know your weight and like you know your blood pressure. If you know those things.
Some people don't know those things.
They don't know those either. Got to get up on it.
Thank the doctor made me have to know those things. So I know mine, but it wasn't by choice. So I got to monitor mine. But ownership and that's one of the reasons we started Black Westchester and People Before Politics, because as a whole, the mainstream media basically does not care about us. They do not cover us. They do not. They're not here to educate us. And every other community, Chinese, the Jewish, Hispanic, every Irish, they have their personal papers and publications that speak to them, that promote what they do, that change the narrative. You know, we're not all thugs and you know, sagging pants wearing, you know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
Felons. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people that you know, and the only thing we get celebrated for is sports and entertainment. And even then they build us up to tear us down.
How about that?
Michael Jackson. I mean, you know what I'm saying? He was the favorite, and then he started breaking Beatles and Elvis sales records. You know, he became Wacko Jacko and all these other things. You know what I'm saying? But he was beloved before that, though. You know what I'm saying? So, and the other thing, as far as money is concerned, politics. We want these politicians to do what's in our best interest.
Absolutely.
But other groups of people are spending big money to help them get in office. And a lot of times we don't have that kind of money to spend. We don't understand political blocks and, you know, using our money in that way. You know what I'm saying? To help get someone who deserves to be in office. Money plays a role there too. So
100%.
Money is important for everything we do.
Money's important.
You know, can't live without it. You know what I'm saying? You know, shouldn't be the only thing you think about, but you can't live without it though.
Cash is king, but
cash is king. Yeah.
But credit is queen.
Absolutely.
No, and you can't take it with you, and that's why it's important to start thinking about the next generation. You know, your legacy. You know, right now we're leaving debt. We're leaving. You know, we want to be able to pass certain things along to our children, and we believe that credit is that door, that gateway that can open up opportunities. So we just here to educate them, make sure they know what opportunities they have. The information is here to learn. You just got to be willing to accept it.
Now, I know y'all don't have I don't have a lot of time, but for those who are hearing this and be like, man, I like the way this sounds, I need to know more information. How can they reach you on social media? Is there a website? How do they contact you to learn more about credit? To get
Again, the parent company is Credit Concepts, and that's credit with 2 Ks. So you can find us on all social media handles: KREDIT, KONCEPTS, and our mobile unit is RaiseTheCredit.com. You know, we feel we're on a mission to raise the credit and raise the community. So if you're having an event, if you're, looking to kind of bring our mobile unit out, you can go online, tell us about the event that you're having, and we'll be glad to see how we can partner up and bring that education directly to you.
Okay.
And secondly, I think the best way to, if you have an organization, the best way to empower your people is empower them financially, right?
Right.
Capital and the ability to move money. So my company, is also the Business Kings. So we do personal funding, corporate funding for small and medium-sized businesses, access to capital. Every business needs to move forward. So we help them build out the business credit side of it as well, and access to capital. And then online, you can go in about a week or two. You go to thebusinesskings.com, and then you can get one of these T-shirts, which is it says "Impress your banker, not your boys."
Yeah, I definitely, when I saw you walk in, I was like, I got to have one of those.
Yeah, we need to have
one. Definitely feeling it.
We're impressing the wrong people out there sometimes, and social media certainly doesn't help because everything looks good, but your banker wants to know what's in your account, what your 401 is like, stuff like that.
Yeah. So again, where will you be? What day? What's the address?
Awesome, man. So it's going to be this Saturday. It's going to be awesome, man. Hopefully you guys will come out. Anybody can hear my voice. This Saturday, September 8th, 2018. The whole event starts from 12 to 6. Hang out all day with us. The panel discussion for real estate starts at 12:30. There'll be panels throughout the whole entire day. That's going to be at 28 East 1st Street in Mount Vernon, and the price is absolutely the best. It's free.
Free 99.
So you have no choice. The credit evaluation is free. We know how our people are. We like free things.
Yeah.
So by all means.
No doubt. I will definitely be in the house. I've been on the panel for the last 2. I was actually in the documentary. They put part of the panel I was on in that documentary that Yaz edited or produced or whatever.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So I'm waiting to see what where's that going to be seen? I've been wanting to know where that's going to be. People keep asking me, when can I see it? Where can I see it? Because I did the little bootleg thing. I videotaped my scene with my camera and posted it. Yeah, posted just my scene, not the whole thing, right? Just my scene, and posted it on my Facebook. Dr. Bob, I see that you have a question. You got a question?
Yeah, just a quick question, guys. So I know that your program on Saturday, is going to focus on financial literacy, I guess. But beyond the basics of financial literacy, what kind of additional services do you provide to people who are looking to enhance their credit standing, maybe to carry out some bigger projects?
Well, we take a 3-step approach because it's not just about credit recovery; it's other components. So number one is credit building. Some people have credit issues but don't have any credit, and having no credit is just like having bad credit. So we make sure we give guaranteed approvals for certain things to start the rebuilding process. In addition, debt settlement. Not everything can be resolved with credit repair and credit recovery. Sometimes we got to buckle down and we got to pay who you owe. But we make sure that we pay the reduced amounts, minus the interest, minus the fees, sometimes 60 to 80% reductions. If you're going to pay, that's what you pay. And then you make sure when you pay, it's removed from the report after you pay. And then finally, those protection plans, because you don't want to invest in improving your credit and your finances and then leave it out to open for identity thieves. So we make sure that, once you start, your credit is protected. So those 3 additional services, from repairing to protecting to building, and then my partner will expand on the business.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we believe it's about business. So, we want to be in a position where, we had to put out resumes. And I went to school in Sheepshead Bay. Most of my classmates were Caucasian. I've known people that never had a resume because their uncle gave them a job, their aunt gave them a job. They owned the businesses. You look at certain ethnicities, you grow up, they're going to give you a job in that 7-Eleven or that Dunkin' Donuts or that mobile gas station or whatever it is, because their parents and family owned the businesses. So we have to own that. So we're not necessarily fishing out and putting resumes and hoping that somebody gives our son or daughter a job when we can keep that money in the family. So, the Business Kings is set up to help individuals with business plans to build out business credit. A lot of people have EIN numbers. That's a 9-digit number, as powerful as a social security number, but most people fail to realize how powerful that is, and that's how corporations move. So, we become well adept at helping people build out business credit, access a whole nother line of capital, corporate funding, so we could just, continue to move to the next level. So that small business becomes a medium-sized business, and that medium-sized business becomes a large corporation.
Now that I would, on top of my personal, that I really, being a small business, that's what we need. That's
95% of business owners do not build out their business credit. That's a powerful statistic.
Right. Because like you said, we got that 9-digit number. You know what I'm saying? We got
Gotta
that.
build it out.
Gotta build it out.
Yeah.
I wanted to say to all our listeners that who may be skeptical about the benefits of drawing on the services that Credit Concepts offers, that, I used to work for a mortgage banker in a previous life, and I had to help do some of the credit repair. And it did make a difference when people who were on the margin and, couldn't quite qualify initially, had someone come in and help review their credit standing and offer some repair services, pay off some of those outstanding debts at a reduced rate. It really did make a difference. And I can tell you that, as the brother suggested, if you have an experienced, seasoned credit repair person on your side guiding you through the process, you may find that a lot of those debts can be reduced to a more manageable load.
Exactly.
So a couple of quick comments. Marvin Church, black developer from Mount Vernon, he says, I love the subject.
Awesome.
Andre Wallace joined us. Fire Union President, Yonkers Fire Union President Barry McGooey joined us. Westchester County Democratic Chairman and Board of Election Commissioner Reggie Lafayette has joined the conversation. Rodney Norman, a friend of mine from Long Island, has joined the conversation. Andre said, what's up, everybody? And Atif was talking about money, he said he wanted to do a fundraiser for Jamani Williams, who's running for lieutenant governor, but couldn't find a house and couldn't find someone who had money, with friends who had money that were willing to donate.
How about that?
You know what I'm saying? So he wanted to do it. And, we need to do more of that for the candidates we would like to, help get in.
Sure.
But he didn't know how to go about it and didn't have the people that he could reach out to. Most of the people he had didn't have the kind of money that they needed to donate. So he wanted to bring that point up, too. So that's anything I didn't ask you that you want everybody to know.
We just have to compete financially, and I think that we have the resources, we have the money to do it. We just, as a people, sometimes, and speaking from black and brown people, we just move our money around in ways that
we support everybody else.
It's just not intelligent, and good credit is not something that's far-reaching. It's in everyone's grasp. It's just about what's your priority, where you want to go, and what you really want to do, right? So we're in the approval business because declines don't really get you anywhere. So, it's all about empowering. That's why I raise the credit. We believe if you raise the credit scores in your community, you will raise the community because they will have access to things with low interest loans on cars and everything
that's
else.
important too. You can get a loan, but your credit is bad. That interest rate might be 29% or something, like something crazy, like something ridiculous.
Eat you up.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And very often, lenders are taking advantage of the lack of knowledge, especially
Absolutely.
of people in black and brown communities, especially when it comes to seeking credit for the purchase of homes.
Absolutely.
Very frequently, African Americans and Latinos who will otherwise qualify for prime credit rates find themselves being offered and accepting subprime credit loans, and it's really brothers who have expert knowledge like Jeff and Quincy, who can help us make wise choices and guide us through the credit offers that we have. And so I think that's an indispensable type of knowledge that we really need to take advantage of if we want to see increases in rates of home ownership in places like Mount Vernon.
Stephen Lewis from the legendary Atlantic Star said, "Thank you, brothers, for bringing this lifeblood to the community."
Pleasure.
And shout out to Floyd Myers, big brother of Heavy D. He's listening right now. So
So Floyd,
yeah. So I'm going to get into my next guest, but before I let y'all go, this is too important of an issue to be squeezed into 10, 15 minutes. And I do want to invite y'all, once we get past the primary and once we get past the election and not dealing with candidates and stuff, to come and spend much more time, whether we do a whole show on it or at least an hour, and y'all can, give more information and educate people a little bit on the show a little bit. I definitely want to do that. And if you ever have something that you want to share in the newspaper for credit, definitely I welcome the contribution to the community, to educate our readers. Whatever y'all would like to share or something like that. So
Absolutely.
I definitely thank y'all for coming, and I definitely welcome y'all back. And I hope we can continue this conversation, in a future show, so we can really educate people.
Well, we strongly encourage everyone to. I'll let Q and thank you, brother AJ. I know this was spur of the moment.
Yeah.
We're doing this. We strongly, as we wrap up, strongly encourage everyone to come out. To get their credit pulled, get it fixed, read it. And if you're a parent and you have children, you have a responsibility to make sure they understand what credit is and those trade lines and how to affect what affects it, good, bad, or indifferent. So
we're not taking calls just yet, and since Mike calling in, one question I have that I know people don't know. So you have to be careful about having all these different companies run your credits, because don't your score to go down a little bit after you run your credit or something? Can you explain that? Like the important? Can you explain?
When lenders run, that's one of the biggest misconceptions. People think when they check their own credit that it damages it in some way. But whenever you check your own credit through a credit monitoring site or through a personal pull, it doesn't do any damage. However, when a lender checks it for permissible purposes for lending, then that's when you could potentially lose up to 2 to 3 points per inquiry. So you definitely want to be proactive. Know what your credit score is prior to applying, because by law they have to tell you what that credit score criteria is for whatever you're applying for. And if you know that your credit score isn't that level, don't waste your time applying. As a people, sometimes we like to see where we stand by, let me check and see if I can get approved. That's not the way to do it. Check first. If you're not in a credit position, don't waste your time, because you're doing yourself damage.
And also, if you get turned down for credit, you have the right to get that report, right? Is that how it goes? Can you get that report if you apply for credit for something and you get turned down?
Yeah, they will send you a reason of denial.
But if they don't, you still can request your credit. You can request that.
Exactly.
Because a lot of people just get turned down and they don't know why they got turned down, and they never see what their credit is.
Well, most know why. They know they hit.
Well, they still don't see it though.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't know what it is.
Sure. Exactly.
We actually have Councilman Andre Wallace, who just joined the conversation. Andre, are you there? Andre, are you still there? Oh, I think we lost him. Okay. Well, he had called in, so shout out to Councilman Andre Wallace.
And sometimes they'll give you the report, but they won't give you the number, right? So they give you a free report, but there's no number to go along with it. So sometimes, you need both, really, to really understand what's on there.
And those numbers cost. Don't be. There's a lot of monitoring sites that may provide what they think your score is, especially if it's free. But just remember, these bureaus of billion-dollar industries, they make money off of your credit score, so it will cost, even if it's just $1. But you have to pay for accurate credit scores.
Councilman Andre Wallace, is that you?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Councilman.
I just want to say, before you get started, I want to congratulate you and thank you for bringing Rapicon back to Mount Vernon. I've been to all of the previous ones. It has always been an incredible event. It's always been like a family affair, and it also, for us old heads, it's how we used to get down in the park and in those situations. And the one thing that it has done in the last few, no matter what side people on politically and who they were supporting, they all came and they all had a good time that one day.
Right.
And then, the bickering started the next day or whatever. but for that day, it's been peaceful. And I just want to thank you for bringing that to Mount Vernon, because Mount Vernon desperately needs more stuff like that. But I know you have a comment, a question real quick before the guys go.
Well, just with the Rapicon too, just wanted to mention this is an element of the way me and Curtis planned it over the 5 year of Rapicon, and the reason for the Rapicon DJ Con is to bring everybody together and to get the younger people out, and you have to give them something to listen to or to gravitate to, and this was the base to do it. So now we're starting with these young brothers who are coming in and others who are coming in who's going to help and educate the community, because what we want to focus on is uplifting everybody financially. A lot of times we sit back and we say, hey, we need to build affordable housing and we need to build low-income housing. No, we need to raise those people in everybody else's pockets and dollars and jobs so that they can afford to live into any place they want to. And this is a good example because I want everybody to come out for Rapicon, come over, see these brothers, get on the bus, and you know what I'm saying? You don't even need money to get on this bus. Just get on the bus and get yourself correct, So this is going to be something that I'm encouraging everybody to come out to. I'm encouraging everybody to try to register and get in to sit at the panels and see them. And you know how the panels are, AJ. Usually they get real crowded and it's standing room only. And, before you know it, you can't get inside there. So, try to get in early, try to register, try to come up and make sure that y'all get in so you can hear these young brothers because they got a lot to say, they got a lot to offer our community, and this is a definite step in the right direction for what we want to do. I've been doing this for a long time with trying to get people jobs and working on that and training and stuff, but this is another element that Curtis and these gentlemen and I have put together to even move it, forward even more. So I'm just giving Rapicon, DJ Con a shout out, and our young brothers there, and everybody else, and hopefully everybody come out and have a good time next week.
Absolutely. And we'd like to thank our guests for coming, and like I said, we definitely going to have y'all back on.
Indeed. Look
no
forward
doubt.
to it, man.
And I'll see y'all Saturday.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bob, thank you.
All right, brothers. Y'all have a good one. Yeah, I'll see you all Saturday as well.
Yes. We need to get our credit. When you talk about repairing, we talk about moving a community forward, and you talk about building a community. Yes. When we talk about building a community, we very rarely have that conversation. Empowering the people, getting their credit up is another way of empowering the community. So, people with a healthy credit records, make a healthier community. So I want to applaud these cats for what they're doing. The mobile thing is definitely, I've never seen it before. I like that idea. So now I want to get into our next guest. We have 4 Democratic New York State candidates running for the New York State Attorney General's office. And we are blessed by the presence of
You said it perfectly last time.
I did. Licia Eve. I love that last name. It almost sounds like that's a nickname like on Facebook or something. Like you don't know too many people last name Eve, but definitely we definitely wanted to have you here. Like I said, we'd like to inform the public on the candidates and give them a look at it. So look at the candidates so they can make informed decisions at the ballot box. So before we get started, let me give you an official People Before Politics welcome.
Thank you so much. I mean, it really is a pleasure to be here.
And I know campaigning is what you're doing at this time, and I know you're running. Like I said, I know you were at my current church and my former church,
Yes.
Greater Centennial and St. Catherine in New Rochelle earlier today. So you've been making the rounds, but I thank you for making time out of your schedule to come down here.
Of course, so happy to do it. I mean, I really appreciate the work that you and Bob do to help educate and inform,
right.
Because I believe it's more important to do that than ever. We have so many challenges that we are dealing with as a community, as a state, as a nation. That's frankly the main reason why I'm running to be the Attorney General. But I think the more information that is out there for your viewers and listeners to have, the better off we'll all be. I mean, it's a saying that's been around a long time, but it's still true. Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Well, I want to welcome a few more people. Kenneth Chamberlain is on the check-in. Frank Trulio, Uncle Frank's on the check-in. Damon, who you met, who has moderated the panel.
Yes,
He and I are partners. He's also the host, but he couldn't make it today. He got crazy work hours, but he wanted to say hello to you.
Oh, hi back.
Also, Sean Patterson Howard.
Yes, and I forgot. I'm sorry.
One
I didn't
of
mention her name.
Mount Vernon's distinguished native daughters, along with Donnie Starchild
Moore. Yes.
Just want to check in.
Check it in from North Carolina, and my friend Rodney Norman from Long Island, who's listening from Kansas City.
Oh wow!
So we have a lot of people today who might not normally listen, or we only dealing with Westchester issues. We got people around the state definitely listening that are not usual every week listeners tuning in to hear what you have to say.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, as I said, it's really wonderful to be here. I mean, as you stated in your intro, I am running for Attorney General of our great state, and I want to just emphasize a lot of your listeners and viewers are very informed.
Pull the mic a little closer.
A lot of
it
your
moves. You
listeners
can just pull it up.
and viewers are very informed. Does that work?
Yes,
Okay.
good. I want everybody to hear you. Yes.
But I was in Mount Vernon this morning, and someone said, "Well, I live in the Bronx. I can't vote for you." I said, "No, yes, you can. This is a statewide office."
Right.
And so, if I may, AJ, just take a moment. The Attorney General of the state of New York is the chief legal officer for the entire state. A state of almost 20 million people,
right,
with 62 counties in it,
right,
of which Westchester is one, but a really, really big and a very important one.
Right.
So wherever you call New York State home, whatever community is in Westchester, if you live in New York City, if you live on Long Island, if you live in Central New York or Western New York, if you're a registered Democrat, I am, with great respect and humility, asking for your vote on September 13th, and my ballot position is 7A. But I am running because now more than ever, New Yorkers need someone to protect, defend, and empower them. We've got this unprecedented assault from Donald Trump on virtually every single right that we as a people and as New Yorkers hold dear. Civil rights, environmental rights, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, reproductive rights, pay equity. He's trying to roll back criminal justice reforms that took place under the presidency of Barack Obama. There's almost no area of progress, where this president is not seeking to roll it back. And it's the Attorney General of the state of New York, frankly, more than any other state in the country, that plays the most important role in fighting against those rollbacks. And I am the most qualified, most prepared, most experienced person to not only fight back against Donald Trump, but to win. But I'm also best prepared to deal with all the challenges we have at home. And I know that, in past shows you have talked about, and your guests have talked about, the many challenges we have in Westchester and across the state. Our criminal justice system, the fact that it is unfair, particularly to black and brown young men, that predated Donald Trump. So we can't blame that on him.
Right.
And that's an issue that we own as a community, we own as a state. The fact that we don't have the kind of educational opportunities and the economic opportunities that all of our children should have, no matter where they call home, that also predates Donald Trump, and that is something that we own. We've got the opioid crisis. We never dealt as a state and as a nation with the crack crisis as we should have. But with the opioid crisis is now an opportunity to get it right the second time. We have a housing crisis, not just in terms of affordability, but in terms of discrimination and in terms of people having a place that they think is affordable to live in, but when they turn over their hard-earned dollars to their slum landlords, they're living in places that are literally unfit in which to live. So we have a tremendous list of challenges that are extraordinary that we as a state own, and at the same time we have this assault, unfortunately, from somebody who's the president of the United States on so many things that we hold dear. And so we need to have an attorney general who's ready to roll, to hit the ground running, and I am that woman, and that is why I'm running, and that is why I'm asking for your viewers and listeners' support.
Now, it's funny you talked about Trump. So, Barbara Underwood, who's filled in since Eric Snyderman had to step down voluntarily, she's been very active in going after Trump because his businesses and a lot of things that were the corruption and alleged crimes took place in New York State.
Oh, absolutely. And I listen, I think Barbara Underwood is doing an extraordinary job as Attorney General, so that everyone understands she is the Attorney General. She's not acting. She is the Attorney General
right,
until the stroke of midnight on December 31st. And then whomever wins the general election for Attorney General in November becomes the Attorney General on January 1. But her work has been extraordinary, and her work really falls into two buckets as it relates to Donald Trump. One is Donald Trump the man, Donald Trump the business person, Donald Trump who founded Trump University, that is a sham for-profit college that took a lot of New Yorkers and a lot of other people around the country for a ride. And so Attorney General Eric Snyderman sued Trump University and got some compensation for people who were completely fleeced. Young people who thought that they were going to get this great education from Trump University, and they got nothing but a bunch of bills. We've got the Trump Foundation, another sham. Have you ever heard of a foundation whose board of directors hasn't met in 19 years? Well, that's what the Trump Foundation is.
I didn't know that.
People contributing, they think to a nonprofit entity, and he's using hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay settlements and to pay for a portrait that is, hung in one of his golf clubs. So we have a whole series of issues and investigations and prosecutions ultimately focused on Trump the person, and that's another reason why the New York Attorney General is so important, because as you said, he's a resident of New York. His assets are here. A lot of his cronies are here. Michael Cohen, who was his lawyer, who said under oath that, in effect, that the President of the United States, or the candidate at the time, directed him to commit a crime for the purpose of silencing women so that he could become the next president. So we have a whole set of investigations and prosecutions tied to him personally, but then we have a whole nother area where Barbara Underwood is focused, and where I would continue as Attorney General on January 1, that's focused on the Trump administration's policies. So his rollback of the Clean Water Act, his having someone who heads up the education department that wants to use education dollars to give guns to teachers. So there's a series of administration policies that are important that the next Attorney General fight back against. And again, I'm most prepared and best prepared to do that.
Well, I want to touch upon a bunch of topics, but one that we always talk about and comes up quite frequently on this show, and we cover in the paper, is the national thing of black men being killed by the police.
Right.
And we have two people on the listening right now, Kenneth Chamberlain Jr., whose father was killed by the White Plains Police Department, and Stan Ridley, whose son was a black cop who got killed by the county police department, both who have called for the Attorney General's office to investigate to no avail, and they've been both fighting for justice for the homicide. And there's several other unsolved homicides, but those particular in the hands of the police. And there's other case, the Eric Garner situation, where it was against police policy. The chokehold was against police policy, but it was not against the law, and no one has gone to jail. The only person that actually went to jail is the guy who videotaped the situation. I think he's the only person that served time.
Yeah, which is absolute insanity.
So how would you, you being if you were elected the new Attorney General, how would you handle these situations in ways that we have not got any kind of justice in those situations yet?
Well, first of all, condolences are not going to bring these fine young people back, but I do want to share my condolences with the persons who are listening and watching right now. I can only begin to imagine the pain that they must feel. It's another reason why this office is important, because within the past few years, under an executive order that was issued by the governor 2.5 years ago, the Attorney General of the state of New York is now the special prosecutor automatically. There's no is she or is she not. The Attorney General of the state of New York is automatically the special investigator and prosecutor in any instance where a New Yorker anywhere in the state who is in the custody of law enforcement and who is unarmed ultimately is killed by whatever means. A chokehold in the custody. In the case of India Cummings, a 27-year-old woman from my hometown of Buffalo who was arrested, put in the Erie County Holding Center, was unarmed, so she was in the custody of law enforcement, had medical issues that went completely untreated.
Like Raynette Turner and Mount Vernon.
And ultimately was found dead on the floor of her jail cell in her own urine and vomit. And ultimately, a medical review board at the State Department of Corrections determined that based upon their very extensive factual findings, that her death was a homicide because the medical treatment, or the lack thereof, that she did not receive. So the term was used, shocked the conscience as to constitute a homicide. Unfortunately, something like this happening one time is one time too many. And now the Attorney General of the state of New York has the explicit authority to investigate or prosecute in any of those instances. And I know in the case of India Cummings, Attorney General Barbara Underwood was looking to whether she would conduct her own investigation. A grand jury has actually been impaneled in Western New York. I was on the record very early on saying this case cries out for an investigation. Someone is clearly unarmed. They're in the holding cell. They're in medical distress. They're not getting the appropriate care, and they're now dead. This must be investigated, and wherever that investigation leads, if it leads to prosecution, then it needs to be prosecuted as a homicide. So there's a tremendous power of the Attorney General's office to prosecute in these kind of cases, and I can't prejudge what may happen with any instance in the future. I hope as Attorney General, I never have to deal with someone who is in the custody of law enforcement, who is unarmed, and who winds up dead. But if I do, I will use the full powers of the Attorney General's office to conduct an investigation. And if that investigation warrants prosecution, to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law.
Now, I know there's an ongoing situation, and I wouldn't ask you to speak into particulars. The New York State Attorney General, Snyderman, actually brought charges up against the Mount Vernon mayor for campaign finance irregularities or whatever. Now, what I do want to ask you, so we can clear something up for the listeners, the mayor went, his attorneys, his legal representation, put out something that the Attorney General did not have, the office did not have the authority to investigate him. And then sued I think they, tried to sue the Attorney General's office for coming after him. And then said Barbara Underwood didn't have the authority because she wasn't appointed by legislature at the time. She was just acting, but then they did vote her, and they did appoint her. So I just wondered, a lot of people don't understand about the authority that the and again, and I'm not asking you to speak about the particulars of the case, because that's a case in litigation right now, but the authority of the Attorney General.
Sure, no, I'm happy to. So Barbara Underwood was the acting Attorney General for a period of time, but acting or not, she has the full powers of the Attorney General. But as of May 21st, when the legislature, in accordance with the state constitution, that's a process is provided for under our state constitution, the legislature voted her in. She is now the Attorney General of the state of New York until the end of the year. Now, there have been some discussions about, well, to what extent does the Attorney General have the authority and the power, acting or not, to prosecute corruption? Let me be unequivocally clear, and I'm not going to speak to the particular situation in Mount Vernon because I don't know all the facts, right. But we have a corruption problem in this state.
Right.
We have a corruption problem in this state, from one end of the state to the other, and that's one of the reasons,
including our end of the state and our city.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why people are so disgusted with politics. They're disgusted with the corruption. They're disgusted with deals. That's why we don't have as many of our people going to vote as they should. Although I say, listen, you don't vote, you lose your right to complain. But back to the issue at hand, corruption. There is enormous authority and power and jurisdiction for the Attorney General to investigate corruption. Now, I believe it should be even broader than it is, but let me tell you briefly what that authority is and the basis for it. 7 years ago, the New York State Comptroller, who oversees, a massive pension fund, and the then Attorney General reached an agreement. It's a written document, a memorandum of understanding, in which, in short, this is what it says. The Attorney General of the state of New York is going to share the authority, the investigative power that the state controller has to investigate any allegations of corruption that concern taxpayer dollars. Because that's what the controller's in charge of, right? Managing taxpayer dollars. So, for example, an allegation of abuse of taxpayer dollars tied to an economic development program. Without question, the Attorney General can prosecute that. Alleged corruption involving taxpayer dollars used by a nonprofit or a corporation. Attorney General can investigate and prosecute that. And alleged corruption by elected officials paid with taxpayer resources if the alleged corruption concerns conduct that took place while they're getting paid as with state taxpayer funds. That is another basis for investigation of corruption by the Attorney General's office.
Let me stop you right there. What if, like in the particular case I spoke on, there was the campaign finances during the campaign before the person was elected and then therefore being paid?
So not speaking to that particular issue, but when it comes to campaign finance issues, and again, without getting in too much detail, but here's the kind of the 30,000 foot set of circumstances. Campaign finance laws are overseen by something called JCOPE, the Joint Commission on Public Ethics. And that commission is supposed to basically conduct investigations and make referrals to the Attorney General's office in many instances if there's allegations of corruption. And one of the issues that I have been focusing on as a candidate is I think we need to get rid of JCOPE. We ought to have a non-partisan commission that deals with campaign finance, that investigates campaign finance, and that can refer any potential matter of corruption directly to the Attorney General's office. There is nothing that's in place right now like that, but I believe that there will be, and there will be soon, because I as a candidate have been calling for it, but many New Yorkers across this city, across this county, and across this state want it. They want an independent body that doesn't have to wait for anybody to say, okay, refer this matter to the Attorney General's office. This independent, nonpartisan body can do it. The bottom line is we got way too much money in politics. That's why I support public financing of campaigns. The fact that somebody can contribute $65,100 to somebody running for statewide office is obscene. So I support public financing of campaigns. There will be no more aggressive investigator or prosecutor of corruption than I am. I am running in many respects as the most qualified, starting with the fact that I got more courtroom experience as a litigator. 28 years since I graduated from Harvard Law School, more courtroom experience than any other candidate by far. It's not even close than any other candidate in the state, starting with when I graduated from Harvard Law School 28 years ago and worked for the first black man to serve a full term on the state's highest court. Fritz W. Alexander, he's got an Irish name, but he's a black man. He died a few years ago. May he rest in peace. And first actually African-American man or woman to serve a full term on the New York State Court of Appeals, the state's highest court. So we need to clean up the corruption that is, and I hate to say this, that is really rampant. We've got to clean that up. We've got to fix it. And I will do it as Attorney General.
I have one more question in that area, and then we're going to move on from that situation altogether.
Yes.
So in this, the state controller, I guess, figured out what was going on and referred it to the Attorney General. And that's what, in his challenges, that he said they didn't have the authority to do that.
Well, again, I'm not going to speak to the specifics, but what I will tell you is that the power of the New York State Controller that oversees a pension fund of more than $100 billion and that is charged with making sure that no taxpayer funds anywhere in this state are abused has significant authority. Now, campaign finance laws technically don't deal with state taxpayer funds. They deal with the contribution that you, Bob, or you, AJ, or I, Licia, may make to another candidate. So in that sense, technically, those contributions are not state taxpayer funds, but the power to investigate and prosecute is broad. And I would say to any person, and again, not speaking to the particular situation involving here in Mount Vernon, you know, folks got to be careful about violating any law, whether it concerns state taxpayer funds or not. I mean, think about it. Michael Cohen pled guilty to what? Violations of federal campaign finance laws. I believe the President of the United States should be impeached. He has committed an impeachable offense. He is an unindicted co-conspirator with respect to the violation of a federal campaign finance law. So, you know, people may talk about semantics, but violation of campaign finance laws, whether it's a federal law or whether it's a state of New York or a local law, is serious business, and obviously nobody should be engaging it.
You have a couple of quick comments. Listener D. Wilson said the most dangerous woman in the world is an African American woman who is knowledgeable, wisdom, and has knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and education, and is the law. You better go get them, girl.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
and,
whoever said that, thank you.
And Floyd Myers, the older brother of the rapper Heavy D, he said, Miss Licia, did I say your name right again?
Yes, you said it perfectly.
Miss Licia is 100% accurate and very knowledgeable.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And Damon K. Jones said, where is it at? He said, Licia E for AG.
Oh, God bless.
So I just want to get a couple of those out.
Thank you.
Someone has shared your website.
I'm humbled. Yes, LiciaEve.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm Twitter. Licia LeeCiaEve.com, and Facebook page the same.
Welcome to everybody else who has joined us. Charles Stern from Mount Vernon. I'm trying to get everybody because there's a few of y'all. Sean Barrett, Lat George, the lovely Sylvia Gonzalez, that's her Facebook name, Maggie Wade, I said Stanley Ridley, who else? There was a few more. If I didn't mention you, I'm sorry. Thank you all. Gail Baxter from Yonkers, former head of the Yonkers NAACP.
Oh, shout out to Gail. Thank you for your service.
The Future Society from Mount Vernon. Marvin Church, I think I mentioned his name before. Stephen Lewis from the legendary Atlantic Star. And everybody else tuned in. And before I go any further, Atlantic Star last year in September was awarded Atlantic Star Day in their home of Greenberg, and the street, a portion of the street, Tarrytown Road, I think it is now Atlantic Star Way. And sometime this month in September, it's in blackwestchester.com.
Oh,
they
that's
will
wonderful.
be doing a big celebration concert in one of the hotels, and that's coming up soon. So they'll be celebrating that whole thing. Shout out to Paul Finer, the Greenberg town supervisor, and they will be portions of the proceeds from the concert will go to their alma mater, Woodland High School, which is Damon K. Jones High School. They've given back to their school.
That's
and
wonderful.
I just want to shout them out for their longevity, for their good music, and for their continued work that they do for their community. So, they got to shout that out. So I wanted to give them credit for that. So I will definitely, Black Westchester will be there for the show. We will definitely be there for the show. Glenn Butler. I forgot to shout your name out, though. Bob has some questions. I'll let go.
Yes, so Licia, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I want to ask you a question, and then I want to step back, perhaps to offer.
Correction, Doubletree Hotel in Tarrytown. That's where the concert will be. But go ahead.
I want to ask you a question related to the specific topic that we were addressing, because it's important for those of us in the city of Mount Vernon, whenever we have on expert guests, to try to get an informed perspective about many of the issues that we're grappling with, because there's a lot of cynicism and skepticism about the validity of the charges that many people like myself have made with respect to Mayor Thomas's conduct in office after making a good faith to try to see whether or not it comports with the law. The question that I have is, even though there may be issues about whether or not the Attorney General received the referral in accordance with New York State law, my impression is that political campaigns are themselves nonprofit corporations and therefore are subject to nonprofit corporation laws.
So they are not nonprofits, and that is why if you give $1 to your church, which is a nonprofit, that's tax deductible. But if you give $1 to a campaign, it's not tax deductible because it's not a nonprofit. It's not considered for profit, but that's why you can't deduct contributions to campaigns. But let me say this, and again, not speaking to the specific facts, because the worst thing. And I know this as a lawyer, you don't want to comment on something when you don't know all the details. But what I will say is that we have district attorneys, right, in each of the counties across the state. Their ability to prosecute for a myriad of crimes, whether there's a referral or not, is significant. We have federal prosecutors. I mean, Preet Bharara, the former prosecutor of the Southern District of New York, is actually going to be the final co-moderator, the final Attorney General debate, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Beautiful.
Next Thursday. So
when and where is that?
That is going to be at Cooper Union in Lower Manhattan next Thursday. It's being co-moderated by Mr. Lair of NYC Radio. And the former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York that President Donald Trump fired, even though he was doing a great job rooting out corruption.
Right.
So thank you for the clarification. Because we have such a crowded field for Attorney General this campaign season, I wondered if we could step back and actually offer up our listeners some background information about you.
Oh, I really
you said that you'll be ready to
ready
take
to hit
over.
the ground running.
And why don't you tell us about your
And I will tell you,
credentials?
I'm really proud. I woke up yesterday morning to an endorsement from the Albany Times Union, which is the state capital's paper, unanimously endorsing my candidacy, and the Queen's Tribune. So if everybody Googles Queen's Tribune and Alicia Eve, they made a point of saying that every single member of their editorial board, there was unanimous agreement that the Queen's Tribune should endorse my candidacy. But a little bit about myself. Born and reared in Buffalo, New York, the daughter of two great public servants, my mother who taught English for 33 years, and in her retirement, never being paid $1, founded what became the largest and most comprehensive alternatives to incarceration for women in the state of New York in the state's history, for which she received national recognition. But many people know my father. If any of your listeners out there are EOP or HEOP graduates, they went to college because of my father, Arthur Eve from Buffalo. He served with distinction in the New York State Assembly for 36 years, the first African American to be deputy speaker. He served in that role for 20 years. He first ran for office in 1967. He ran, I should add, is not the party endorsed candidate, but ran and won, and as a freshman member of the Assembly, crafted the legislation that created the EOP and the HEOP programs, through which more now than 100,000 primarily black and brown young men and women have gone on to college who otherwise might not have been able to go. And I say that because I'm 54 years of age as of last week. I'm proud of my efforts over my entire adult life to improve the lives of New Yorkers, but I stand on the shoulders of two extraordinary people that I'm proud to call my parents. But born and reared in Buffalo, product of the Buffalo Public Schools, Smith College, the John F. Kennedy School of Government, Harvard Law School. Yes, I went to law school with both Barack and Michelle. I knew them individually before they even met each other. She was Michelle Robinson back in the day, but as fierce as she is today, that's exactly how fierce she was when we were in law school almost 30 years ago. As I mentioned earlier, clerk for judge on the New York State Court of Appeals. And so people understand this. The State Court of Appeals is like the Supreme Court of the United States, but it's the highest court for New York State. So for 2 years, I'm having discussions with judges on the state's highest court about the most fundamental legal issues of our time, based upon the state statute and state constitution. I have more courtroom experience than any other candidate in this race in federal courts across the state. And the case that I am most proud of, is a case when I was barely 30 years old. Matter of fact, we filed suit when I was 29. I represented as a class every single woman incarcerated at District of Columbia prisons against the District of Columbia. At 29 years of age, with 3 other young women lawyers, we took on the DC prison system, and we fought hard. We had a lot of setbacks, but we stayed the course, and we won. I was in charge of the obstetrical gynecological care part of the case. One of my clients literally had her legs shackled to a hospital bed as she brought a child into this world, a woman who looked like us. This conduct was inhumane, it was unjust, it was clearly unconstitutional, and we brought suit and we won. And I say that because I forgot how young I was when I represented hundreds of women incarcerated in DC prisons. That's the kind of what we call baby lawyer. When you're not 30 years old and you're practicing law, we call ourselves baby lawyers. That's what I did as a baby lawyer. That gives you some glimpse, some sense of the kind of attorney general I will be. After that, I served as one of Joe Biden's counsels when he was a top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, helping him advance positive immigration reforms, and most significantly, helping him implement the Violence Against Women Act, which he authored, working with hundreds of organizations across the country whose sole purpose is to support survivors of domestic violence and physical assault. I worked for Joe in 95 and 96, and here we are in 2018. And what are the issues that are front and center in our national debate? Immigration and the continued abuse of women, some men, and also children. Proud that I served as the first Senate counsel and Homeland Security advisor to the Honorable Hillary Rodham Clinton. For 4.5 years, was in the trenches fighting for Hillary, fighting with Hillary to advance reproductive rights, women's rights, pay equity, criminal justice reform, civil rights, voting rights, environmental rights, fighting for good judges, fighting against bad judges. I'm proud that I worked with a lot of black women in particular in Westchester and across the state and across the country, because a lot of people saw this bust in the United States Capitol, the rotunda, of women who were great suffragists who fought to get women the right to vote. But they were white women. And a lot of people, both black and white women, said, well, wait a minute, where's Sojourner Truth? Sojourner Truth was an abolitionist, but Sojourner Truth, who was born enslaved in New York,
ain't I a
was
woman?
Suffragist. Yes, ain't I a woman?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't I a woman? She was a suffragist way ahead of her time. I crafted the legislation that Hillary introduced in the Senate and that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee introduced in the House, passed both bodies. And let me tell you, that involved me, you know, talking to my white Republican counterparts in the Senate. I had to explain to them who Sojourner Truth was and why she needed to be honored. But you know what? To their credit, they heard us out. We did that education, and today in the United States Capitol, for the first time in our nation's history, there is a statue, there is a bust of a black woman, Sojourner Truth, for all the world to see. I more recently served as the first woman and the first person of color to be the Chief Economic Development Advisor to a governor of our state in the state's history. I oversaw 11 agencies in state government, from tax and finance to economic development. When I left the governor's office 5 years ago, they gave my job to 2 different people. But when I had it, I took care of business. And I say all this to say, experience matters. We got somebody in the White House who has no idea what the heck he's doing, in addition to just not wanting to advance the cause of justice. And that's why, frankly, the Albany Times-Union and the Queens Tribune said, I'm ready to hit the ground running. I'm smart enough and secure enough to say, you know, I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything.
Absolutely.
But I know where to go to get the advice and counsel from people who do. But I know about government. I know how to litigate. I know how to fight. But even more important, I know how to fight and I know how to win. And that is why I believe I am the most qualified, most experienced, most prepared candidate to take on Donald Trump and win, and to deal with the issues that we have to deal with at home and help us as a community move forward in addressing them.
A couple of quick comments. So Charles Stern of the Amani Charter School in Mount Vernon said, I wish this lady was running for governor. And Atif said, give it time. And D. Wilson, that gave you the comment before, she said, the queen has arrived.
Oh, you know, God bless everybody who made those comments. Listen, I grew up, my parents taught me those of us who can fight need to stand up and fight for those who can't. The biblical version of that is, to whom much is given, much is required.
Right.
And I've been extraordinarily blessed in my life. And it's only half over. I'm 54. I got a long way to go. I have much more to do, much more to serve, much more to accomplish, because we got a lot more to do in our communities. But, you know, we all got to step in and deal with this nonsense. And not everybody has to run for office, but there is a role for all of us to play. And this is the role that I feel best prepared to play on behalf of all New Yorkers, because it's crazy. And I'm running as Attorney General because we have to have somebody to defend and protect and empower all New Yorkers. And I got the experience and the commitment and the knowledge and knowing how to do it in spades. But I really appreciate the shout outs from your informed viewers. And, you know, I want to bring all that experience, all that commitment to bear to help us together tackle some of these challenges. They're going to be hard. But, you know, I never give up from a challenge. You know, if stuff was easy to do, we wouldn't have problems. But I'm best prepared to roll up my sleeve and work with everybody to get the job done.
Now we heard about who you are, the elected official. Who is Licia the person?
Well, I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I have 4 brothers. 4 African-American men are my brothers. My eldest brother is Arthur Jr. My middle brother is Eric Vincent. My two youngest brothers are actually named after Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. My father knew them both.
I heard you say that. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes. My two youngest brothers are twins. And my parents.
Malcolm and Martin.
Yes, Martin and Malcolm. My one's name is Martin King Eve, and I think he's watching, listening now. And the other one is Malcolm X Eve. My father knew both Martin King and Malcolm X, and he always believed that they were much more alike than they were different. The media at the time tried to portray Malcolm as this radical that wouldn't have anything to do with Martin, and Martin Luther King as being the exact opposite of Malcolm. And I think what history has shown us, they may have had slightly different means, but their goal of economic and social justice was really the same.
Well, they do that. They do that. They do that to us in the history of this country. They always find ways to form divisions, whether it's light skin, dark skin, east, west, whatever.
Yes.
They always find ways for us to fight amongst ourselves, and for our groups to fight amongst ourselves.
And we have to know how to move past that. So I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a caretaker, I'm a fierce advocate. One of the things that comes up, a lot of times reporters will ask me, and they'll ask the other candidates, but I'll just use myself, say, well, can you be independent? We have all this corruption. I said, listen, this is also part of who I am, AJ. For those of you who remember the Attica prison uprising, the riots in 71, I was 7 years old at the time. And my father, when he was in the state assembly, would get letters from inmates at Attica sharing with him their concerns about the conditions they were living in that were horrific. And my father was one of really a very small number of people that would respond to the inmates' concerns. My father actually has on more than one occasion in the late 60s would drive family members in Buffalo to Attica Prison, which is a long drive, to visit family members. And so when the riots broke out in 71 and I was 7 years old, the inmates had a very small group of people that they wanted to negotiate on their behalf. One of them was Tom Wicker, who was a writer for the New York Times, and my father was another person that they asked to come in. I learned recently, one of the people they asked to come and negotiate on their behalf was Louis Farrakhan, and he did not come, but my father did. My father was actually the very first person to enter the Attica prison riot. And I didn't understand it at the time because I'm just 7 years old. But a few years later, even before I became a woman myself as a teenager, I realized my father went into that prison when my older brother was 14, when I was 7, when my brother Eric was 4, my two youngest brothers were babies. My father went into that prison not knowing whether he would come out alive.
Right.
So when reporters ask me, can I be independent? Do I have what it takes to prosecute corruption? I say I'm the daughter of Arthur and Constance Eve, who have literally, in the case of my father, has risked his life to try to see if justice could be served. That is what I am made of. So yes, prosecuting corruption, light stuff, compared to what I bore witness to members of my own family doing because they felt compelled to do what they could to see the justice could be served.
How do you feel? We have a lot of black and brown listeners. How do you feel about the whole immigration thing, the border, and the kids being separated from their
It's
parents
outrageous. It's outrageous.
and being held here? Some being held here in Westchester.
It's outrageous. It's a violation of federal law. It's a violation of federal law. I mean, I knew that from day one because of the work I did with Joe Biden, because immigration was part of the issue, one of the issues he focused on. This was not new to me. I knew right away the President of the United States is directing ICE to break the law. And fortunately, a number of federal judges reached the same conclusion, which is the reason why the President of the United States had to, work to reunite these families. Unfortunately, there was such incompetence, in addition to thuggery behavior, by federal employees that they're still trying to track down where all the children are so they can be united.
500 plus still.
I mean, this is the United States of America. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. So obviously this is an outrage, but you know what? Outrage is not going to unite these families. What we need to do is get that man out of office, not wait for 2.5 years. And listen, I would love to talk about my candidacy the whole time, but anybody who's listening, wherever you are in the United States of America, you need to vote for people who believe in justice and believe in fairness, whether it's in the state legislature or a member of Congress, and oppose people who don't, because we have to bring this nonsense to an end. Fortunately, our federal courts around the country, which is an independent branch of government, are looking at the law. And for people who say, well, people are, they're coming over the border illegally, let me tell you something. I also know this because of my work with Joe Biden, and I know this because I've represented people in the past who have sought asylum. One of the last matters I handled before I went to work for Joe was to represent on a pro bono basis a young brother who was fleeing violence from a West African country. People crossing the border, they're not crossing the border because they're looking for better economic opportunity. They are crossing the border because if they stay where they are going to be killed by a gang or be sexually assaulted by their abuser. They are fleeing violence. They are fleeing violence. That has, for decades, been a completely legitimate basis to seek asylum in the United States. So anybody crossing the border, if they're going through a checkpoint, even if they do not have their papers, if they are fleeing violence, they, under our existing federal laws, are entitled to have their day in court, so to speak, and be granted asylum.
So what about what they were saying that domestic violence doesn't count? Like they were trying to say the people fleeing for domestic violence, they were trying to say that they don't qualify for asylum.
Absolutely not true. The President of the United States, who tries to, implement policy by tweets when he's had too much caffeine at 3 o'clock in the morning, has said that. But I'm here to tell him I know a heck of a lot more about our immigration laws than he does, because I actually have read them and I understand them and I know what I'm talking about. And that's just simply not the case. That's just simply not the case. So whether you're fleeing violence from an abuser, violence from a drug cartel, violence from a corrupt government, those and other reasons are bases to seek asylum. It doesn't guarantee that you will get asylum, but it is a basis to seek asylum in this country, and that should never change. That changes who we are as a country.
The two comments from Gail Baxter, former president of the Yonkers NAACP. She said, "Vote like your life depends on it."
And it does.
Is my only encouragement to get folks to the polls. Hashtag shut Trump down. Damon K. Jones wrote, "If Licia does not win, and I wish she will, we will have an opening in a few years in the Westchester County District Attorney's Office."
Well, listen. One of the things, I don't think I said my ballot number. So my ballot number is 7A.
Yes.
7A. Believe in Eve. Believe in Eve. Licia Eve. Believe in Eve. Everybody knows Eve from Adam and Eve, right? She may have gotten the apple, but in this case, Eve is goodness. 7A. For those of you who believe in luck, 7 is a lucky number. For those of you who are children of God, as I am, the number 7 is a fabulous biblical number. It means perfection and completeness. So just remember that. Believe in Eve, Licia Eve, 7A. And let me also remind your listeners and your viewers that, primary day is on a Thursday this year.
Now, do you know why that is?
Yes. So it's Thursday, September 13th. The reason why it's on a Thursday is because that Tuesday is September 11th, right? The anniversary of, the most significant terrorist attack on our nation. It's also a Jewish holiday, and so for both reasons, the New York State Board of Elections moved the election from Tuesday, September 11th to Thursday, September 13th. So I know it's confusing, but I can't underscore enough. Listen, I hope everybody votes for me because I'm running as the most qualified, most experienced candidate. Vote 7A, believe in Eve. But I'm going to just go out and say, you know what? Even if you don't vote for me, please just go vote.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't vote, not only are you losing your right to complain, but even more important than that, you are disrespecting the sacrifice that our ancestors made so that each and every one of us could register and vote without fear and intimidation. I mean, sometimes we have to remind people that literally there are people who lost their lives. They were lynched or burned alive or shot or beaten to death to ensure that each and every one of us, black, white, man, woman, young, old, rich, poor, to ensure that each and every one of us, but particularly black people, could register and vote without fear and intimidation. And so if you say, you know what, I don't feel like taking 15 or 20 minutes, I mean, I got to say shame on you.
Well,
shame on you.
I want
because that's disrespecting that sacrifice. So please vote, and please vote for me, I ask, as the person who is best prepared to take on Donald Trump and to win and to deal with the challenges that we have at home. A jacked up criminal justice system, lack of educational economic opportunity for all of our children. We got the opioid crisis we have to deal with. We have a housing crisis we have to deal with. We've got, bad voting laws. We got some of the worst voting laws in the country. That's all those issues. Those are on us as the state of New York to fix. And I am best prepared to work with all of you to help us address those issues so that our communities and our state can be as strong, as powerful, and as empowered as they can be.
Absolutely. And I want to add a couple of things to that. Shout out to Naz Duncan, young lady in Mount Vernon fighting for the justice of her son who was gunned down in the streets of New York, and has not been able to find justice for that situation. It wasn't at the hands of police. It was in the street, black on black. But we have to do. I mean, the issue that I've talked about more than any other, in addition to Donald Trump, is criminal justice reform. Because there's so many issues that are important. But I think at the end of the day, if we don't think if we don't have faith that our criminal justice system is fair, not a whole lot, matters. And I'm so sorry what happened to, that sister's loved one. Because, we have problems in our community, and one of the things that I've talked about is a need to expand educational economic opportunities so more of our children are not engaged with the criminal justice system in the first place. But, I support the legalization of marijuana. I support strongly the expungement. Now, why?
Because the justice system is not fair. I mean,
call a police hold.
You have somebody being picked up for recreational use, smoking weed on the street, and they're being picked up and arrested, and so they now have a conviction on their record. But someone who's living in the suburbs, doesn't have that conviction. So it's an unfair criminal justice system. And I believe that the conviction of every single person who has been convicted of recreational use of marijuana, their records should be expunged, because we got a lot of bright young people who got picked up for smoking weed when their wealthy counterpart in the suburbs would never get picked up on the street for smoking weed. Now it's more difficult for them to get a student loan, to be in public housing, to get a job, you name it. And so those are the reasons why I support those initiatives. But I also strongly support greater transparency in police disciplinary records. Listen, the vast majority of law enforcement, I am not going to be on this show slamming law enforcement, because, when I'm walking down my neighborhood, which is a transitional neighborhood, I appreciate there are cops on the street that do treat people with respect. And I believe the vast majority of people in law enforcement are good people who are trying to do the right thing. I think the person who hates a bad cop more than anybody else, other than the victim of the conduct of the bad cop, is a good cop who does play by the rules.
Absolutely.
But we, in any instance, and I'm on record saying this, in any instance where someone has been killed or physically harmed as a result of police conduct or conduct of correction officers, like at Rikers Island, their disciplinary records need to be made available to the public. That should not be private. And New York is almost unique relative to so many states where it's hard to find out whether the police officer had a really good record, right? Which would be good for people to know. Hey, this person's been a law enforcement officer for 20 years, never had a problem with anybody in the community. And something happened, you know, and we got to look at the facts, but the fact that they didn't have disciplinary problems is pertinent to an investigation. In contrast to someone where something happened, somebody was hurt, and you look at this disciplinary record and you're saying, oh my Lord.
Yeah, so like somebody who,
Right.
like someone who
We
cost
ought
the
to
city
know
of Mount
those
Vernon
facts.
$1 million and charges. I mean, fees paid out for roughing people up for you know.
Right. We need to know what the facts are. So there is so much work to be done. I support strongly the elimination of cash bail. We have thousands of New Yorkers across this state, but particularly in the New York metro region, who are sitting in jail right now, not for days, not for weeks, but for months. And in the cases of some people, years in pre-trial detention, have not had their constitutional right to a speedy trial. And the only reason why they're in jail and somebody else isn't for allegedly committing the same crime is because they didn't have the cash to get out.
I said somebody's working on something, no cash bail. I got a couple of comments. Marvin Church said, I am a SUNY Albany grad. And I
SUNY.
SUNY
I'm
Albany
sorry,
grad,
SUNY.
yes.
And I knew your dad and the late
Norman McConney.
Jr.
Oh, yes.
We have a caller. Caller,
SUNY.
please.
SUNY.
I'm
Albany.
sorry. Oh, wait. Hold on. That was me.
Yes,
Let me turn
SUNY
it-
stands for State University of New
Right.
York. It's one of the states. SUNY Albany is a spectacular four-year
Right.
college university. Yes.
Caller, please, are you on the People Before Politics radio show? Please state your name and your purpose for calling.
Hey, yo, it's Damon.
Oh, Damon.
G, what
I
up,
didn't
man?
even recognize the number. Okay.
Yeah. This is that secret phone number that I
The bat phone. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. No, Alicia, I apologize. I couldn't make it. I couldn't make it tonight. You know, I know I invited you.
Well, you're here
and,
in spirit.
Yes, and I watched the whole show, and like many that are on Facebook and watching, we are very impressed. Please stay engaged. You know, I think a lot of people are going to support you. I see it on the thread, and I'm going to support you because I like the history of the struggle. And you understand.
No, thank you. I'm very
and
honored
a
by
lot of
that.
Yeah, I couldn't. You know, at the debate, but after hearing you for an hour talking, I think a lot of people will be impressed about what you have been doing, and your experience even in legislation is great, and your understanding of procedural justice for people of color. It's refreshing,
Thank
you know. So I'm going to get behind you, and I hope everybody else is listening. Will get behind you on this Democratic primary. And like I said in the thread, we always have a DA's opening in a few years. and I am dead serious about that. And people that know me that's listening, they know I'm dead serious.
Well, listen, you know what? I am so blessed and humbled, frankly, to be able to seek this office, because running for office is not easy. It's hard, but you know, it's a blessing. It's an honor. It's an honor for be able to make my case, and frankly, it's even more of an honor to hear from New Yorkers who have struggled and who are continuing to struggle, but who have the courage to try and turn their lives around. You know, I spent a good portion of the day at the Fortune Society. This is probably 2 weeks ago, and it is it's based in New York City. It was founded about 50 years ago, and its sole purpose is basically to help with reentry for brothers who have done time. In some cases, we've been incarcerated for a very long period of time. And I was supposed to come and talk for, 10 or 15 minutes. And I wound up speaking for about a half hour, and I took probably about a half hour, 45 minutes of questions. And I wound up being at the Fortune Society for basically most of the day, pretty much shaking the hand with every single person who had done time because, frankly, they made a mistake, but they paid their debt to society, and I was honored to be in their presence. Because I know it's hard. It's hard. Here you are, you've been incarcerated in some cases for years, and then you're out and the world has changed, and then you're expected to find a job, not get in trouble, reconnect with your family you haven't seen. There are all these issues you have to deal with, and here are all these brothers who are trying so hard to really turn their lives around so they're not going back to prison, and so they can lead productive lives for them, themselves, and their families. And, so I take strength from so many New Yorkers that I'm so honored to be in their presence, no matter where they are, whatever their position, whether they're a university president, whether they're a teacher or a doctor, or whether they're someone who was previously incarcerated, whether someone who is battling, addiction, but has the courage to go to get treatment. And in that instance, I've asked them, if I were Attorney General, what would you want to have happen? They said, listen, 15 days is not enough. Insurance companies need to give 30 days. I had a treatment counselor say to me, I was in the back of a Lyft car. Every time I'm in a Lyft, I give my campaign literature to the driver. I ask them to vote for me 7A, and they're so shocked that, they got, potentially the next Attorney General in the back seat. And I always ask the Lyft drivers, I ask them about their issues. One of the last Lyft drivers I got was a gentleman who works in a treatment facility, and he said, Licia, even after people are completely clean after 15 or 30 days, we put them right back where they were before. They're going back sometimes in the same place with other people who are using. So how can we expect them to be successful? We need to do a whole lot more to transition people, whether they've done time or whether they've come clean through a drug treatment program. And, all of this is not necessarily the purview of the Attorney General's office, but the goal of the Attorney General at the end of the day is to do justice. It's to do justice, and I will be a tireless fighter to working to ensure that justice is served and that our communities are as strong as they can be. But I can't tell you how humbled and honored I am to have your support, Damon. I mean, you have been on the front lines in keeping our community safe for so long. You bear witness to so much what we have accomplished and what we have yet to do, and I'm just extraordinarily honored to have your support. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. I will hang up now and let y'all continue the show. Bob, AJ, y'all doing a great job, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good,
thank
D.
you.
We'll
thank
talk
you.
later, man.
All right. I just want to say thanks to Damon for calling in, and also I didn't mention the September issue is out now. It should be hitting the streets over the next couple of days, wherever it hasn't hit the streets yet, and the digital issue, I just posted a link. You can read it right now. The digital issue, very powerful stories in there, including the Cupcake Cutie standoff. I don't know if you heard about that.
No,
the day after Damon hosted the forum,
yeah, White Plains.
the next day, the mayor of Mount Vernon had his daughters
Circumvented the administrative procedures.
Right, had his daughter attempted to have his daughter's shop shut down without due process.
Damon's daughter's
Yeah,
shop?
yes.
Oh my Lord! Oh.
So and we were saying that it was retaliation for Damon being a big critic, but someone further up in county government called and said, that has more to do with what you did last night. You hosted the Attorney General Forum, and it's a good chance that the winner of that forum will be the person prosecuting him.
Yeah, well, you know what?
So
this, as I said at the outset, We have a corruption problem in this state. And it saddens me and it angers me because, well, I hope we all are all angered by it, but the reason why it really saddens me is because I know what good public servants can do. You know, my parents for me are my best examples. I mean, my father, you know, his experience at Attica, ultimately getting justice for inmates that he believes were killed by the state of New York, as well as for the prison guards who were. You know, his work with EOP, you know, my father's the author of the lead paint law, the author of the school-based health law, the author of the nurse practitioner laws. Nurse practitioners exist in this state because my father created the legislation to create them, to provide more means for people to receive health care. And so I know that public servants and elected officials in particular, if you've got a committed public servant, like I will be as Attorney General, who views their sole mission as doing justice and improving and transforming lives, working with the community, there's really nothing that can't be achieved. So when you have elected officials that conduct themselves in a way that is the antithesis of that really is a black mark on everybody else, that angers me and it saddens me, because you know what? It's another reason why young people, our best and our brightest, decide that they don't want to go into public service. You know, we want our best and brightest in everything. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, in the communications space, law enforcement, firefighters, you name it. But we want our best and brightest. We want them in public service too. Right. And when they see things like this, when they see corrupt official after corrupt official, and even officials that may not necessarily be breaking the law, but are not holding themselves to the highest standard, you know, it's another reason for our best and our brightest to not even give public service a look. And we all lose out when that happens. And so we have got to fix this. And I know people have been talking about it a lot of times, for a long time, but I am not going to be playing around. I will investigate and I will prosecute corruption in this state no matter where I find it. So anybody who's thinking about engaging in corrupt activity, you need to stop it right now.
And just
because
so we
when I'm Attorney General on January 1, you're going to be on the wrong side of the law and on the wrong side of this fierce litigator.
And just
I was a very good lawyer representing women prisoners and clients across the state, and I'm going to be a very good lawyer as the next Attorney General of the state of New York. If everybody gets out and votes, believes in Eve, and votes 7A Lisa Eve for Attorney General.
And just for the record, you're running on the Democratic Party.
Oh, yes,
but
yes, I'm running as a Democrat.
It
yes.
won't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican if you're breaking the law.
Oh, absolutely not. Oh, absolutely not. You could be the most beloved Democrat in the state, but if you're breaking the law, guess what? You are going to be held to account. You will be held to account.
I asked that because of the national level, how, you know, there are Republicans that don't believe in what's going on with the president, but they're Republican and they're backing him, and they have the power to do something about it, but they're not because of the party affiliation.
That's why I said early on, because I know you have a lot of listeners that are not just in Westchester County. You may have listeners and viewers who are in other parts of the state, and you know there are a lot of congressional races in this state where the current member of Congress is a Republican, but where Democrats have a chance of winning that seat in November. New York could be pivotal in the entire country, could be pivotal in turning the House of Representatives from Republican to Democrat. And that is so important for so many reasons, a lot of legislative and policy reasons, but it's also important because it's the House of Representatives that prepares the articles of impeachment against the President of the United States. So, I mean, everybody's just got to get out to vote. I don't care where you are, if you're in Westchester, New York, anywhere in the state, anywhere in the nation. I mean, just exercise your right to vote and make your voices heard. I tell folks, listen, Donald Trump, there are no words to fully describe how I feel about him and what he is doing to this country. But we will get through this.
I said that last week.
We have gotten through slavery. We have gotten through lynchings. We have gotten through the worst of abuse in the civil rights movement, the voting rights movement, the women's movement, and the justice movement. And we will get through this.
And the country survived the Civil
War. And the
War.
country will survive, and we will be stronger for it. But we will get through this more quickly if people do exercise their most constitutional right. And for everybody out there who hates Donald Trump, right, and hates what he's doing to our country, let me tell you this. The reason I think, in part, why he's acting like he's acting, you know, he's like acting like a quartered animal, right? The closer the Bob Mueller is getting to him, the more anxious he's getting, the more tweets he's doing, right? Because he knows he's about to go down. He knows he's about to go down. And so he's scared. The President of the United States is running scared. And he's running scared in part because he knows something that I know that I think a lot of your viewers and listeners do not know. And that is, you have no idea, listeners and viewers out there, you have no idea how powerful you are. You have no idea how powerful you are. I don't care if you don't have any money. I don't care if you're homeless. I don't care if you don't have a graduate degree or a high school diploma. If you are registered to vote, you are powerful. You are powerful. And that's why you need to exercise that power. And that's why he's so scared. But we need to exercise that power and vote.
Some of our listeners have asked, and I do this with every candidate. So for people that are just seeing you for the first time, they're impressed. They want to know more about you.
Yes.
How, share your
Go to my
website,
website,
social media,
yes,
all of that.
www.LiciaEve.com. That's LeeciaEve.com. Licia Eve. Check out my Facebook page. Check out a video. Google Licia Eve in 1984. You'll see a very powerful video that talks about how crazy this president is. But on my watch, as the Attorney General, I'm going to protect and defend and empower all New Yorkers. But I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, on Twitter. Check out my website. Would appreciate, you know, any support your listeners could have. Provide, spread the word. But most important, get out and vote. I ask you to believe in Eve. Vote 7A Licia Eve to be your next Attorney General. I will not let you down. I will not let you down. Thank you so much,
Not a problem.
AJ and Bob, for having me. It really has been an honor. And thank you again for all of you do to make sure that so many of us are educated and informed.
Absolutely. And this is a cover of the September issue on the screen right there. The young lady on the right is Damon's daughter, the owner of that business.
Oh, wow.
And they fought, and she was figured she didn't do anything wrong, and she was not going to leave so they could shut her down. And there was a standoff till 12:30 at night, and
Wow.
they fought, and you
It was
know,
a courageous young woman.
and the news covered it and everything, and it brought her a lot of attention, a lot of free advertisement, political elected officials, celebrities, including Jeff Redd, the singer from Mount Vernon, have gone to the shop.
Oh, I'm going to the shop. I'm going to go to the shop.
And posted pictures of them at the shop, you know, that their support.
Right.
The county exec is coming through this week, buying like 5 dozen and giving it away to the seniors or something like that.
Well, I love sweets.
Yeah.
I love sweets. So I'm going to go to the shop. Is it still open? Is it open right now, do you think?
It should be. It's 8 Southwest, down the street from Grace Baptist Church, if you know where Grace Baptist Church is.
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I
Go
ask a
ahead.
question? Yeah. Since our Democratic County Party leader and Commissioner Reggie Lafayette has joined us, at least was on air, one issue that has been raised recently regarding the issue of corruption throughout New York State is the laws that allow commissioners of the local board of elections to also simultaneously serve as party leaders, thus setting up a possible conflict of interest. I know that there's been discussion in the New York State Legislature for some time now about reforming it to create a clear division. between the two, and hopefully to bring some of those conflicts of interest to an end. And I was wondering if you have any position on this particular arrangement that we have in New York, which I think tends to engender corruption. And if so, how would you?
No, that's interesting. I've never been asked that question before. I don't, as a matter of principle, if there is an elections commissioner who also is a party activist and a leader,
well, the party chair, yes.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. And I will say, listen, your viewers may know I'm not the endorsed candidate. I'm a proud Democrat, but I am not the endorsed candidate. But I am proud that I'm on the ballot, not because one person endorsed me or because a few people in the room endorsed me. 40,000 New Yorkers, including in Westchester County, across the city of New York, across Long Island, all the way to Buffalo, New York. I got signatures from Plattsburgh.
Wow.
On the U.S.-Canadian border. New Yorkers across the state. I only needed 15,000 signatures across the state to get on the ballot in 14 of the 27 congressional districts. I got more than 40,000 in a matter of weeks across 21 congressional districts. And I'm so proud that it's the people of the state of New York, tens of thousands strong, to put me on the ballot. So, and some of those people were people who bucked the state party in different counties across the state, who said, Lisa, you know what? The state party may have endorsed somebody else for purely political reasons, but I believe you're the best attorney general candidate, and so I'm going to circulate petitions for you. And in some cases, those people, work for the Board of Elections as well. So, full disclosure, I don't necessarily see anything implicitly wrong with it. Here's the problem. When you do run the Board of Elections, you do have a lot of power. And so I think we need to be watchful. To make sure that power is not, abused.
I personally have said it was a conflict of interest because the Board of Election Commissioner does what's best for the people, and the party chairman does what's best for the party, and that sometimes they are not always the same thing. So I thought,
No, I understand
so you
what
can't
you're
have.
saying.
So
I understand what you're saying.
I can't have one person fight himself. You know what
Right,
I'm saying? Like
right.
you know what I'm saying? If there's a problem, I go run tell the board commissioner that the chairperson did something wrong. I'm telling Reggie did this. That doesn't work. But I mean, personally, he's a cool dude, very knowledgeable. I have no problem. I just think in those incidences, there are times when it could be a conflict because those two roles sometimes oppose each other.
Well, listen, I definitely understand your point, and I think at the end of the day, one of the reasons, frankly, why that issue was raised, my guess is because there is so much corruption generally, and corruption at all levels of government.
Damon said there is a bill in the assembly. I don't know how far it's gone.
To basically say
separate,
you got to pick.
Yeah.
You're either going to be the party chair or
but
the top elections
and
official,
again,
not both.
And again, for full disclosure, I do say this about Reggie Lafayette, the Westchester chairman, but it's not just the Democrat, the Republican. But the Republican Doug Colte,
right?
The chairman is also the Board of Election Commissioner for the Republicans. So it's not a him thing. I just think the two titles,
as a matter of principle,
no matter what party it is, one is job to do what's best for the people, and one is job to do what's best for the party, and those two things don't always align. And in that situation,
I will take a look at that bill. Listen, I'm smart enough and secure enough, as I said earlier, to acknowledge what I know and what I don't know. I wasn't familiar with that bill, but I will take a look at it. But thank you so much for the question, because at the end of the day, people do need to have faith not just in their criminal justice system, but in our voting laws. And this is another area where I worked on with Hillary. I crafted legislation that the New York Times editorializes the gold standard for election reform. It had felon reenfranchisement. It had election day registration. It had no excuse absentee balloting. It had early voting. So people have to have faith that the voting process and our voting laws have, the greatest integrity. And if that piece of legislation is designed to support that goal, that is something that I would take a hard look at.
Coming to the close of the show, 30 seconds or less, why are you the candidate that the people listening should vote for?
I'm running as the most qualified, most prepared, most experienced candidate to take on Donald Trump. It's not just about fighting, but it's knowing how to fight and how to win. I'm also the best prepared candidate. My roots in this state run deep. I'm the best prepared candidate to help us grapple with the challenges that we own as a state, to help us move forward. I've been fighting for social justice my entire adult life. From the time that I represented those women incarcerated in District of Columbia prisons, when I took on the District of Columbia prison system and I won, that's the kind of baby lawyer I was at 29 years of age, and that's the kind of attorney general I will be. And I, again, ask your voters to vote for Licia Eve, Believe in Eve, 7A, and I will be so proud to represent each and every one of you on January 1 as the next Attorney General of the great state of New York.
In closing, I'm getting some text messages. There are some individuals who will remain nameless who are right now at home smoking, saying, "Oh, I like that. She's going to legalize. They're going to legalize marijuana." No, but I'm just saying. They said, I like that. She might get my vote. I'm just saying, we do have some listeners that are partaking right now.
Multitasking. Okay.
So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I definitely want to, like I said, we got RapperCon coming up this Saturday. The Atlantic Star concert is September 27th at the DoubleTree in Tarrytown. Again, half of the proceeds go to the alma mater, which is Damon's alma mater, Woodlands High School. So everybody come out and support them. Make sure you get a copy of the current issue. Like I said, the digital, I just shared the link to the digital copy. The print issues will be hitting the streets this week. Shout out to Don D.P. Powell of D.P. Printing, who has been doing a miraculous job on those T-shirts that you see. We will have the September issue on a T-shirt available for sale for $25. Hit me on Facebook. I'll send you the link. You can pay for them in advance. We're taking orders now. And we have just started the advertising for the October issue, and we're running a 10% discount to anybody who advertises in the October issue and pays for their advertising and hands in their artwork by the 7th. You will get a 10% discount on the cost of your advertising. So thank you for everybody who supports us. Thank you for everybody who's listening, for tuning in. I will be breaking this up so you can watch the interview and posting it later on blackwestchester.com so you can watch it and share it with others. Until next week, this is the People Before Politics radio show every Sunday night, 6 to 8 on INTHEMIXXRADIO.com. Next week, we will have State Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins and State Senate candidate Biaggi, Alexandria Biaggi. I hope I pronounced her name right.
You got it.
And next week, since it's the last week before the primary, we will be coming on for an extra hour. So instead of 6 to 8, we will be on at 5 o'clock from 5 to 8. And we will be dealing with all the races in the primary and who's running and, try to inform you. And then we will have the senator come through, the state senator, the highest ranking black woman in the state of New York. And we will have Senator Klein's opponent, Biaggi, who know how I feel about that. Senator Klein and what he did with the IDC, he got to go. The whole IDC got to go. Anybody running against a candidate
gotta go.
That was in the IDC, they need to be voted out because of what they did to Senator Andrea Stewart Cousins.
Amen.
To try to divert her power. So I'm not feeling that, and we're supporting any candidate running against an IDC member, and that includes Klein. And so Biaggi, I don't endorse people, but she has my support because she's going against IDC Klein, who's still up to his tricks or whatever. So until next week, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.